Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to my talk, Emotions. And it's really important because emotions are energy in motion. I want this. No, I don't want this. I want this. This created with AI, with the Microsoft Designer, using AI because if you are speaking at conferences right now in those days of large language models and GPT stuff, there needs to be something with AI, otherwise why should you talking? But I want to start with a show of hands, because who thinks that this talk is a mental health slash personal skills talk? Who thinks it's a design talk? It's great. So you really read the agenda, you really collect through the abstract what it is about, because most of the time if people think about emotion, they will think it's going to be personal health. I love mental health and so. But this talk is a design talk, so you read the abstract. I'm very happy. So you are in the right place, and you will see this phase a lot because for a reason I wanted to link him, Einstein, to emotions and energy. I can't explain why, but it is what it is. So I am Dennie Declercq. I'm president and IT coach at DDSoft. DDSoft is a non-profit that I found myself in Belgium. But we work worldwide because I like to travel and I want to create impact. And I don't believe that I will create a big impact only in my own little country, even divided into 3 national languages. So I see it bigger. I always saw it big. That's also where dreaming and believing come from. And by the way, you have geeks and you have next level geeks. If you start having a hashtag on your own clothes, let it print. If you have contact with some person, you know, it's geeky. I'm also Microsoft MVP. I'm really proud of it. You can find me on, it used to be a bird, but now it's an X with Dennie Declercq. And we have the website of my non-profit. But first of all, why did I choose this crazy title, Emotions, and I put a E and a dash? To be honest, I wanted to have another sign, but some signs are not allowed to submit into the call for paper because there will be SQL injection. But I really also didn't just want the word emotions. I wanted to be something creative, and I was thinking this is going to be great. Because emotions are energy in motions. And some people say yes, nah. And some people say it's true. But as you saw on my previous slide, I really do believe and I'm practicing modern Eastern spirituality. I'm not going to buzz you about that. I'm not going to brag about this. But if you're doing some things for years, it will have an influence on everything you have in your life. And that's one of the visions about energy. By the way, that is one of the branches talking about it. It's not the only branch. Who was here yesterday at the keynote of Scott Hanselman? Did you saw the temperature on the GPT models? It's always the same reflection of energy, and instead of boiling molecules and boiling stuff. So there is something. But also IT and the software we made and use, because you cannot create software as a developer without using software from other people at all. So it has an impact on people's feelings and emotion. And IT solutions, by the way, I include websites, apps, everything, has also impacted my emotions, especially in the last 2 years, the COVID years. So, and it's a saying that geeks gonna be geeks, so you do research about stuff. And then you make a talk about it if you like to talk at IT conferences. So the first intro will be a little part, just some context, some theory about the social science, the people science of emotions. Then I'm going to give you a few examples, I say a handful of examples, really how IT can influence emotions just to make it tangible, to make it resonate. And as you will see in the introduction, I will separate those emotions in low emotions and high emotions. Are we going to show you how to trigger low emotions? Also how to limit low emotions, how you can limit high emotions, and how you can add high emotions. The stuff is, I'm not here to tell you what you should be. It's not an ethical talk too. But I do believe if you don't want to do something, and you know how to do it, you also know how to prevent it. As you will see, low emotions are not the most nicest emotions. But the thing is, if you know how to trigger not nice emotions, you also know what to be aware of to do the opposite. That's the reason I want to show the spectrum. But you can do what you want, and it's not an ethics talk. It's not an ethics talk. So talk a little bit. My friend will inspire you with some emotions. And we are in IT, and we are working with frameworks. Guess what? In the social science, the people science, the psychology, the philosophy, there is also framework and science. And people science and computer science is even more different. It's way more relative. In computer science, we are kind of quite absolute. We are not perfect, and some things are also very relative. Sometimes we think we are very absolute, but are the opposite. And it's also way more ratio and feeling. If you go into people sciences, then you will see that feelings are really, really important. And feelings can be very, very relative. What triggers a feeling, by the way, feelings and emotions, this is family, these are nephews. So what happens, what handles or triggers emotion with me, can have another emotion for other people. But the thing is, it's even worse the social science than IT. Do you know we are not that bad in the IT industry? Because we have loads of frameworks, but just about emotions, you have 2 emotion framework, 4 emotion framework, 6 emotion framework, until even more than 295 emotions, but then they call it a list. So it's just like the same, maybe even worse. And to be even more, to make it more complex, we will use the 6 emotion framework today, but I'm a geek. And for me it works adding on top of it the 2 emotion framework. You will see that in a graph I made myself. So here you see the 6 main emotions, so the 6 emotion framework. Not the only one, but the one that resonates most with me, the one that I love to use. And as you see, there is like the temperature, the water is boiling. Red is low, and at the top is high. I didn't choose green and red, just for the reason I do a lot about accessibility and color blindness, and the red and green is one of the most colors that are not distinguishable by people with some kind of color blindness. So I use a yellow and a reddish. Everybody should be able to distinguish both. And then I had, as I said, I want to combine the 6 and the 2. I call it, so 2 colors, the positive, I add a high between brackets, and the negative, I added low. And Mother Nature wasn't always or isn't kind to us. Because when it is sharing the emotions between us, we get 2 positive emotions, comparing to 4 negative. Why not 50-50? It's not my choice. And in the positive, we have the joy and the amazement. We feel enlightened. We feel passionate. We feel in love with the thing that we are doing. We are amazed. But then we have the negative. And I said we have 4. So yeah, it's not a nice scale. We have anxiety. We are so afraid. We are panicking. We are anxious. We can grieve about stuff. Very, very sad, crying, grieving. We can rage about the thing. Something can really, really upset us. And of course, we also can have a complete aversion or disgust about something. So we call it negative or low, and the positive ones are the joy and the amazement. So there's one thing more that you need to know about the emotions before we're going to combine it with IT. They are stacked on each other. You know, in IT, if you are writing software like in C#, but in all the languages, we have the stack and the heap, we have the stack, and we are stacking on each other. And it's like Here is, you can see it as a last in, first out principle. So maybe on the stack, we are grieving about something. Maybe we are grieving about something bad happens in our life. I think all of us had something bad happen in our life. But also, on top of that, we can feel rage about something. Maybe we have the feeling that it's not fair that we are grieving about something. We can have aversion. And on top of it, we can have anxiety that it should happen again. The thing that we are grieving for, combination with the rage and the aversion, we can be so anxious that it will happen again. So they are laid on each other. It's just an example of colors, the order. For everybody different, and not only for everyone, it's also different on every moment in life. So it's complete, even each second, each minute is striving. If this talk is successful, this will be have another color in my own emotion stuff. No, it's other than no. If it fails my talk, if my whole desk is red, yeah, it will have another color, then it's only green. How many people do you have? It all has an impact. But now, the thing we are here, how does IT influence this? And I start with making it tangible with a few examples before we going really into detail. So, it's very crazy what I'm going to do, but I'm going to give a compliment about the positive thing on Facebook. I'm not saying that Facebook is ethical. I'm saying one thing very, very positive. Has someone been in a relation here? And if the relation is over, Facebook, so if you're going in a relation, you can entangle, yeah, you are entangling, in fact, in the Facebook software, you and your partner, and you have photos, and it shows your memories. But if the relation is over, Facebook won't remind you on things happened with your ex. Sometimes this happens, but most of the time, it's a bug they have. They won't trigger this thing intentionally. Google is not evil. Google is not doing this really well. Because you can't entangle, you cannot label your ex that it's an ex. You cannot have a relationship status. And sometimes, I'm doing all my pictures in a Google library. I even pay for it. That I have loads of pictures. And it also has, just like Facebook, picture of the day. Do you remember this? Last year, 2 years ago? I not always want to be remembered on something with my ex. I still love her. Panic-driven headlines. So, I am kind of critical about journalism and media. You can also, if you do research about other talks that I give, I have the feeling that they are really triggering a lot of anxiety to people. I am not saying that it's fake what they are saying. I am not saying they are telling lies. I am saying they are bringing stuff that is true, but that really has an impact, a negative impact on emotions. And they are even saying things that are technically not correct. A pandemic of burnout, no. That's really something in the newspapers, online also. I think it's worldwide. I don't know if I read it in Dutch or in English, and that's where I live. But somebody, we had COVID, we know what a pandemic is. To be honest, a pandemic is about an infection disease. Burnout is a problem. Burnout is a challenge. Burnout is something to care. It's not a pandemic. It's not infectious. If there is an infection, a pandemic, maybe we want to have less contact with those people. If I know somebody going to burnout, I will be more in his room or in her room to help if I'm able to. The next one is typical a Belgium thing, but I think it's everywhere. The war on drugs. Sorry. What they did in Antwerp is not a war. It's just arresting people doing bad stuff. And it's good that they arrest people doing bad or drug stuff. But in the headline in the media, they shouldn't call it the war on drugs, because it's not a war. And each time, let's say, each often Maybe there's an interlude, but each season, or maybe a season skips, but we have articles with questions, is the end of the world coming? Or might be big troubles for business X. X was just made. I made this talk before some name changes going on. It's just X like XYZ, but big troubles. And then you read the whole article and you read, let's talk to the end of the world, but it might not happen. It's just a speculation. It's even in the article. But they have the clickbait thing making people scared because we're all going to die. We're going to crash and burn. I'm citing Rob Zombie because we are at a festival. And big troubles for business X. You get the whole article. Well, but it will not happen. They will succeed. That's a very, very difficult one to tackle because it's a controversial one because we do need security. And insecure software is causing a lot of troubles. But working in the field of accessibility for more than 10 years, having that on your screen and knowing if you miss right now can trigger loads of panic with users. I'm not saying that shouldn't be there. As I said, this is not the ethics guideline. It is not what should happen and why not. It's just showing this can trigger loads of anxiety. Because if you miss your password the next time, and then, to be honest, do you know what happens if somebody knows what happens if you're really stressed? No? You make even more mistakes. So the chances it will be miss your password. How we tackle this? Being conscious about this, thinking about this stuff, being in mind of this stuff, you will see later in this talk, we're going to talk about some mindful concepts without going too spacey. And that's a marketing thing. Don't wait. Price increase tonight. What if I can't buy tonight? Because I'm not sure. It can be very, very good for the marketing, but I do have some questions about it. If it's really not driving people into anxiety and panic or sadness and making them spend on your service or on a product without wanting it, I'd rather have 5 customers really making the conscious choice to work with me than one having of those and then saying, but I'm disappointed. I have strong feelings about this because this triggers anxiety, for example, for people who have not so much money. We are not all that privileged as sometimes we think. We might have a blind spot here as developers. Everyone in our industry is privileged, and also in other industries, it's not that so thing. This is a real story with my friend Dylan Beatty giving a talk at the same moment right now. So thank you for choosing me. I'm happy with people in my room. It's my friend Dylan Beatty, so it's not a nice thing to be on the same time slot, but let's imagine I was in Antwerp. No, it was not in Antwerp, sorry. I was in Sweden some months ago, and we wanted with some speakers, what happens sometimes you go afterwards, after the event, having some dinner with the select group, having some fun, having some food. But he needed to do a reservation via the website of a specific restaurant. The app was not working, of course not. The waitress was not giving an answer on the reservation. And let's say we were with a group of about 10-ish, 15-ish people. We didn't know for sure if we would be able to sit on the table. And then I was together with Dylan and other people were joining later in. Were joining earlier in the venue at the restaurant while we are doing something else. And they were calling to Dylan. They have no place for us. You can't imagine the feeling of Dylan at that time. The end was all good. We worked there with a whole group of people that we wanted to do. They did some changes in the tables. But that's an example of is digital emotions, is IT. It was via a reservation forums, causes troubles in real life and stress and feelings maybe shouldn't be there for a night of having dinner. So failing software bugs do trigger negative emotions or low emotions. But not only software and not only bugs, not only mistakes, not only crashes, because that was the only example of a bug. Also, very, very conscious design decisions we made, or unconscious design decisions we made, but decisions we made, so not crashing software, causes low emotions. So we're going to start with triggering low emotions. As I said, I don't say you should do it, but with a great idea, and as a positive thinker, I hope if you know how you should do, you also know the opposite. So you're at the bottom. And of course, we're going to collect a lot of data. And we're going to use the user's history without any consent, because that's how it works. That's how we should do it. If we want to trigger negative emotions, of course. And we're going to make an application, and the application is going to be about people's health or mental health. Mental health is a part of health. About their emotions. They are emotion managers. This software, this apps exist. About finances, about relationships, nice stuff, if you are in a relation. About travels. But then, we're going to use the user's history to pop following history when they don't expect it and maybe when they don't want it. We're going to show history of travels when people can't travel. This can be due to pandemic. This can be due to financial situations are different at that time. We're going to show information about the next when the relation is over, because it really works if you want to trigger emotions. And of course, we're also going to show big expenses people made, the history about it, in times where the prosperity is over, because this works. I'm going to use shocking headlines, because we're going to integrate a newsfeed in our applications. Developers here, front-end developers, mobile developers, even web applications, always integrate the newsfeed because it should work. And it's really, really needed for all kinds of software. Of course not. But you can't imagine how many people integrating a newsfeed in software that it not need to be honest. And we are going only to pop up headlines about negative events. There are in life also very nice things happening. Really, really nice things, but we won't show this because that will not work if we want to trigger negative emotions. And we're going to handle prediction as facts because it's like a perfect recipe. And we're going to make a like example of the end of the world in the past. Headlines for longer articles, and at the end, in the last alinea, in the last paragraph, we're going to say, most of the time it will not happen. Because we did our job, we triggered emotions. And we're going to use timers, a lot of timers, of course, that are not extendable. So we're going to build reservation systems with strict timers. And we're going to use special promotions with strict deadlines. Remember, developers here, designers here, a timer is not only a technical component that you draw on the screen or that you write a timer. If you really make a short deadlines, if I say to you, you need to do this action by tonight, even it's not the control of a software component, it's just the same as a timer. A deadline is a timer in real life. And we're going to make an announcement in a very, very short time span, because it will help. And if you really want to go next level with creating a low emotion, negative emotions, we are going to do that at the ideal time slot. Those time slots are, let's say, in the Western Europe, those time slots are where most of the people not on their device. It works because they will see it later, and then even the stress will increasing. The time slots can be different in other parts of the world, but you need to do research. And specifically, if you want to do it in a bad way, you need to do research when the less amount of people are online. And of course, if you want to do it good, do it good. And don't do any extent or redo of the announcement or the promotion. Because if you are doing extents of the promotion, of the announcement, then people will know when a certain time it will come back, but I will have another change. Yeah, but then it will not work anymore to have negative emotions. That's personal. That's my personal horse trophy. I hate exclamation marks. Exclamation marks make me shiver. So, and there are other people too having the same. So we're going to use a lot of exclamation marks. And for a reason, I don't know, maybe the reason that that space is interpreted with our eyes and our brain, we need to use a space just before an exclamation mark, because then it's really more clear that this really, really an exclamation. And we are only using it when there is risk. And of course, we're going to use it on personal behavior of our users or people we don't want. I need to tell you something, an intermezzo about exclamation marks. So I live in Belgium. I'm speaking Flemish. It's nearly the same as Dutch. And an exclamation mark, so of course it has another name, this is called an uitroepingsteken. Uitroepingsteken. If you translate uitroepingsteken, really word by word, it means yelling out sign. So I'm yelling out at you. We are constantly yelling out if we are using a yelling out sign. Another word for it is an exclamation mark. So in Belgium, we really call this so the yelling out sign. To be honest, I don't want that people always yelling to me. Why? I don't like yelling out signs or exclamation marks. So we triggered a lot of low emotions. We're going to be better. We're going to increase our karma points. We're going to limit it. So, and when we are limiting negative low emotion, I mean some things does occur low emotions. Some task does causes anxiety or stress. Booking a flight for a lot of people is an anxious thing to do. Subscribing for an event or buying tickets for your favorite rock concert or festival is a scary thing to do because you might miss out. The tickets might sell earlier than you think. Going on a very new software concept for a lot of people can be a stressy, scary, anxious thing to do. So we have low emotion, and that's fact by those people. We cannot erase them, we cannot throw them in a bin, but we're going to do as much of actions as possible to limit those because we are kind. I really like the idea, coming back on the yelling out signs, I really love the idea of an alternative. I'm going to go to the middle of the slide because it's a very, again, controversial topic. I'm going to squash controversial topic in this talk because it's needed. Because believe it or not, believing, you know, but all caps can limit negative emotions in specific contexts. Below that, there's an example of a mail. I have a coach where I live, is my living assistant coach. There was a situation, it's kind of exactly the same. The only thing is I skipped out the details and I translate because he mails to me in Dutch and not in English. So here she said, "Hi Dennie, I promise you that there will be no restrictions for you, even if other neighbors want it. Regards your coach." And not an X. But what she did here, capitalize, "I promise, no restrictions for you." That makes it very, very clear into my eye. And the discussion was about some neighbors wanting a fence against birds, but fences against birds scares me because I have post-traumatic stress disorder of being locked up, and I don't want to live in a prison with fences. And she promised me, so but that thing is, even if my other neighbors want it on my apartment, on my living place, there won't be restrictions, so there won't be a bird case. So we can be creative because sometimes in IT I have the feeling we lost our creativity. We can use bold text to emphasize important information. We can use cursive and underline text. It has an impact. You can even combine both. But a lot of people are lazy. We are not doing this, and we are using exclamation marks. Going more technical, because it's also not only about design, we're going to talk about Azure. Somebody working with Azure here? It's full spectrum IT in this talk. If you need to onboard, let's say, new employees, or even sometimes you do consulting for a customer, that does some own actions also in Azure, in the product, in the control panel in Azure, we can start making a sandbox application for them. And even in the sandbox application, you can use, by example, introduction playgrounds and Azure demo environments for customers and new employees. And even not only in Azure, we can do this in all the software that we build. And guess what? An introduction playground or sandbox doesn't need to be it in that specific build way. If you are really, really using a consistent use of undo buttons, you are also acting on the sandbox ideation. Then you don't have a real sandbox, but if the undo is really consistent, it follows the pattern of the ideation of sandboxing. It's more an ideation. It's enrolling new stuff. This makes people confident. And please, if you make this a sandbox, don't only show it once maybe, but keep it very clear in the UI and the menus, by example, that people can start using it again. Maybe they forget an action that they don't need to do often. And you're going to be really mindful if you are using imagery. And a way, I'm not going too deep into mindfulness, but a way to think about it is really, really easy. We just ask ourselves one question. How would I feel if I would see something in the application, also web application, doesn't matter, that I use? How would I feel about this? If someone else built that product, I'm using it, and I am triggered by that imagery coming into my eyes. And what does that really do to me in some scenarios, and why? How would I feel? And then we have, of course, the additional question. Do you want to trigger this to your customers? And the answer might be yes or no. But then you ask yourself another question. Why? And then the two last questions are the most important one. Is it only for your own benefit? Let's say having more sales and less opt-out, or not? Or is it for helping them, assisting them, your customers, your users? And is it ethical? Are you going to use progress indicators and progress bars for difficult steps? When making, for example, a questionnaire for onboarding or enrolling stuff, we're going to indicate a time estimate. And not only for onboarding, but also if we want to know stuff of our users. Maybe we are really good and we want to know how our customers feel about the product or the service that we delivered. And we want to ask them, let's say a yearly or 2 times in a year, we want to send them a questionnaire to get them know. Then indicating the time that they will need to take to doing this. What will they need? For example, booking a plane from Belgium here to Denmark. One of the most important things is to let go our blind spot as developers that people are like me. We know if we need to book a flight, for example, that we need to have a passport or credit card. This is bias. This is a blind spot. Your users, if you develop stuff, are not exactly copies of you. Maybe you know stuff that you will need for an onboarding, let's say an application that you will need. Your user might not know it. And maybe it's a very timed system, or they need to walk away or even go to another home, another location to get the stuff they need. Show it before the steps you need to take. If you want to do that progress, that process, that part of the software, you will need this and this and this in the process. And always show people where they are. This can be with breadcrumbs on the website, but in questionnaires there are also things like breadcrumbs that you really can show where they are in the process. This really helps limiting low emotions that might happen. Going to a bit deeper about mindful design, this is an awesome book written by Scott Riley on APOS, and there's a whole book about mindful design. I'm just doing, it's not only a short summary, it's a short summary of how I interpret it, because we all interpret something different. So we're going to know the Gestalt principles, the law of proximity, similarity, continuity, the law of common ground, the law of closure, connectedness. It is not in this talk because it's a broader talk about emotions, but there are other talks, there are even speakers in the world where I live, let's say where we live in that network of speakers at conferences, like, by example, Billy Hollis, doing nice talks about the Gestalt principles. They are also in the book about mindful design talking about safe and interactive interfaces, and just also the concept of just being intentional about the emotions you are spitting out to your users. Oh my God, it's going to get better. Do you know how later in this talk, the better it comes? And then we have the party and the festival part tonight. So, talk about emotions. Yeah, but we are not going too high at this time. We are just going be easy. We're going to talk about the concept that I call rules and restrictions before the fun. Take a note of before fun. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be rules and restrictions, of course. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be before the fun. I'm just saying this will make people not too positive. So we will make an onboarding service. And we start with really the things we shouldn't do. Don't share your login with someone else. Only use the software when you are fully awakened for a reason. Never use the application in public spaces. For example, NDA, non-disclosure agreement necessities. But you may use the application for your own profit. If you think, by example, about GitHub repository, open source, you are allowed to use that part for your own profit. It's so delightful. And you are allowed to adjust the code. Say something in for me. And you can use it for free, a paid application. You can ask a free license if you are a non-profit or build it for social good. I love this. I would love to prefer an onboarding or something that the order is the opposite. If the order was the opposite, it would have a higher impact on my emotions. So I'm not saying any of the rules, the good or the bad ones, is not good or bad. The restrictions or the great things, they are not there, but it's just about the order. That's also a controversial one. I cannot talk about emotions if I cannot talk about controversial topic, because most of the time, the more controversial a topic is, the more emotions are getting triggered. So we're going to put in the face the trade-offs the people choose. Of course, it's really needed. Because tonight you bought the ticket here for the festival. Not for this festival, they don't have it. For a festival, for a event, a band coming, or there's something going on. But if the user pays a little bit extra, someone else can go. I'm not saying it's not good to pay a little bit extra, like the idea of buy a coffee for someone else. I love the idea. But sometimes it's pushed on ways that is inappropriate, or that it is appropriate, but really triggers emotions or triggers adding guilt feelings. Let's imagine, and I've been there, to be honest. If you're going in your career, I really went from zero. I'm not saying I'm a hero. I'm on the way. Maybe I wish to be, I dream about to be a hero. But I came from zero. And the first time you made expenses, and then you see that putting in your face, you feel guilty, but you also get recalled on memories of the time that you didn't have some opportunities. The same as the dinner for tonight. And the last thing was flying. If you pay more, it will be better for the environment, because then maybe the airline industry is going to put trees in the forest. The same thing, I'm not saying this thing shouldn't happen. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a balance. But I'm not sure if it's always the right place to put that into any end user your system might encounter. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, but I say this, if you're using it, can have a big impact on the emotions of your end users. And I do believe, but that's a personal opinion, there are better and sustainable ways working with partnerships, sponsorships, doing special cooperations with other parties to fix some problems without putting the opportunity, the responsibility to the end user. But that's a personal opinion. I'm just showing these are facts that will have impact on emotions, but the other thing is just a personal opinion. In fact, it's very difficult to talk at a conference in public or public speaking without showing your own opinions. Maybe we should show our opinions because that makes us human. And we're going to have commercials really, really exclusive for the little. And a good idea is, and here is one of the crossovers with what I do on accessibility, we're going to make a nice commercial, a big promotion, it's going to be great. But we are using an inaccessible color scheme because then a lot of people will miss the context, not a lot, but some people, more than you think, a lot will miss it, and they will hear it from other people when it's too late. And then they will not be so happy. If you want to learn more about color schemes, I have a conference talk. Dennie Declercq in YouTube, error for color not found. And we're going to build a good, decent application. Unfortunately, it only works on expensive devices because then we have the people who without the expensive devices not being so happy. And maybe the people having those expensive devices, living close or working close to people without the same opportunities to afford stuff, will also be a less happy, less high emotion if they know somebody else can't do this. And to be honest, I'm just pointing somewhere in the room, are so cool if you are using Apple Glass. Oh no, I shouldn't say the name. I'm kind of fanatic. But to be honest, nearly nobody can pay it. Does this mean that nearly nobody is cool? I don't know. And yesterday, there was, to be honest, next week, we do a commercial about here, the Copenhagen Developers Festival. And it was a big success. No, we shouldn't do this next week. We should do that yesterday in the night. And then yesterday we should say, you still have an opportunity to buy tickets, for there are still 2 other days of the Copenhagen Developer Festival. So yeah, it was great today, but you can do it also tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Or we made micro recordings of it and not showing it tomorrow night because the fun is over. But next year, there's going to be a next edition of this amazing developer festival. I'm just dreaming, and I'm positive. But then we will, in the months or the weeks in advance of publishing and selling the tickets and selling the early birds, then we can do the commercial of this year, the recording, and say, yeah, last year it was so amazing. If you buy tickets right now, you can do the same in some weeks or some months from now. It's the same in Belgium. We have the thing, I think it's everywhere. Sometimes we have open company days, open construction days. And they show it on the television the day that it's ended at night. Like in Belgium, it's a lot of time on the Sunday. So let's say an open business day on the Sunday. And then we show, today, it was an amazing open business day, and people could go to there and to there. It was so amazing. But it's over because it's exclusive for the little, because you didn't know it, you wasn't there, so no fun for you, my friends. I should do it another way. I should record it after, let's say, the open business day today, but not putting it in the media. But next year, some weeks and days in advance, we show, let's say, next week, and within 2 weeks, there's going to be an open business day. And last year, this was such a success, and then they rolled a movie about what happens. And then people will say, oh yeah, I can also go. Oh yeah, nice idea. Let's go to this. Let's plan this in my agenda. But don't do it when it's over because, well, to you? What do you really? You can even have more impact doing it on the right moment, because timing is everything in life. But now we're going next limit. We're going to add high emotions, because I want you to be happy today. And I'm going to talk about Microsoft, about Edge. Does anybody know the Edge No Internet game? So there's a game. If you have no internet, it's not a fun thing. But there's a game, and it's Edge colon double forward slash surf. And then you have a game to play. I think other browsers have it too, but I'm working with Edge. But the thing is, you can go to that browser always, also without connection. But you can also use in the settings menu, and the options, you can toggle it that is automatically, if there's no connection, the game pops up. That's the thing about positive emotions. No, there's no internet, but you can have fun. And we other companies or businesses are going to introduce unannounced new features of our product. And we should know what the demand is of feature requests of our solutions. And we have a timeline, but maybe we have some little time. We counted in our time that we have some time, or just one coworker, or just one moment in a day, in a week, in a month, that we're working on just the extra magic. And then we push the future. It was just nice. And people feel surprised. And being surprised is one of the emotions. But if you're doing this, don't be evil. Make sure that it doesn't conflict or doesn't have a breaking chance in the consistency with your UI. And I can't say it enough. Open communication is really important. So communicate early, if possible, of course. Sometimes unexpected things happen in the world. But sometimes you know you need to scale in such amount of time, and there will be a price increase, or there will be service interruptions. As early as you communicate to the users, the more safe, the more trust you can gain, the more confidence. And if you're doing consulting, give the right estimates about the current state. How many takes will it be? Don't be over-optimistic. Be just realistic. Give right estimates. And try to give compliments to your users, to your customers, to your coworkers. But please, do it legitimate. Don't use the cliches that we all know. Do it legitimate and do it personalized. Do it authentical. Thank your users, customers, coworkers on an authentical way, and remind their names and their unsolved desires and needs. Of course, the last thing, in the setting, if they are an employer, if they are a customer, in the setting you are building for, because we cannot fix everyone's, and we shouldn't. But in the setting, in the context, know this and remind this. This really will help to build a relationship where there is trust, where there is safety, where there is happiness, joy, and enlightenment. And we're going to make reward systems. And with reward systems, we can work up to have discounts. And if you're making this, to give discounts, to give goals to your users, give goals to your users, but please, give realistic goals. Don't give a goal that you only want to do it because the sake of capitalism, that they will never have, or that they need to over-commit. No, do it realistic. Don't let them overcommit. Do it realistic, nice, but reward them. That's well going on to the game. Going happiness with your product. Provide collectibles. I love how the batches industry and what we can do with now, let my example, generative AI, so without having too much cost for us. As I said, if you talk in these days, you need to add AI in it. Because it's not on the slide, but I'm talking about it. And do if you can do an unannounced increase of their status. So you are working with the status, but then maybe their birthday or a holiday in the region, unannounced, we're going to do an increase of their status. Wow, this will motivate them. They will make them so happy and enlightened. And please, do motivate for actions on a clear, nice way, but don't do, let's call it, annoying pop-up shaming. Because we all know, we all use the water counter to be a better person and drink more water. And then we get reminders, you didn't drink enough water today. Don't you forget to add water, don't you? Maybe if I'm not using the product, there are reasons for it. And maybe you should tackle the thing on a more human way. So it's time for the outro, and we're going to recap this talk. So I learned you what emotions are, and I compare them and I place them into low versus high emotions. And then I show you how to trigger low emotions, how to limit low emotions, how to limit high emotions, and how to add high emotions to go up on the bar of emotions. There's one more question for you to think about. How high do you want to go on the bar? Thank you. And I have time for questions and answers. Other questions? Yes?
Very simple question. Just to clarify your point about having a space and before an exclamation mark, is that something to do or avoid?
To do or avoid, it depends. Do you want to trigger low emotions, negative? Then you should place it. You do a place before it. If you don't want to do a low emotion, if you just need an exclamation mark, then don't do it. And the reason is, if you have more space, it will be more direct into the eyes. People are training themselves at coping systems. So we are teaching ourselves completely. So we can unlearn. We can easier unlearn to see the exclamation mark, because if you are somebody like me, being annoyed and frustrated by the exclamation mark or the out yelling sign, then we can kind of adapt ourselves and learn ourselves overseeing it. Especially by some letters like the L, it's really easy to not seeing this. If you learn yourself, if you need it. But if you add a space before it, it will be way more difficult to unsee it. So it depends what you want. Do you want to trigger low emotions? Please put a space before it. Do you want to limit the low emotion? Don't put a space before it. Don't do it, please. Other questions? Okay, I will recite the question for people watching the recording. How do you test the emotions that you trigger with your end users? And the answer is, it's really, really simple. You just are going to have panels of your end users. You're going to ask to your end user via communications, are there people wanting into a customer study? Not only a questionnaire, but a deeper study. And then you're going really to do technical interview of your customers. And then you're going to also, in the studies, really measure their emotions on some actions. Even if you read a book about mindful design, there are really concrete steps how really to do the user-customer study. And then it's really learning while doing it. So you start with the basic knowledge about the emotions. There are also other talks about it, like emotions, and there are even emotional requirements if you look it up. You start doing this, and then you will need to test with real people and real user committee boards. And grow, agile, grow. Other questions? Thank you all so much.